ready to feel
the power.
That's Colin, Crandall, myself, Adam Roorda. We're bringing you another episode of MMA Power Hour, and yeah, pretty excited.
Absolutely can't wait to jump into this show and provide you guys with some great entertainment and information. Have a good chat here. We've got a couple of good guests, and we're excited to talk to them. And basically, if you have any questions you want to be interactive, jump in here. If you want to ask anything of Adam and I, good to go, no charge. If you do want to ask a guest while they're live, all we require is some kind of a small tip, and they allow that on YouTube, even $1. But anything,
so hop on over to the Hannibal TV on YouTube. That's the Hannibal TV, and also Great North Wrestling is a good one to look up for reference, just so you don't get caught up in the other Hannibal.
Yes, absolutely. Great North Wrestling, aka or / the Hannibal TV. That's the channel.
And if you are on the Hannibal TV, make sure to hit us up on our social media. It goes across the top quite a bit. Our website's not up currently. We will bring that back to life. It is at MMA Power Hour. Yeah, guys, we love y'all. I want to remind everybody that all these episodes right now are being brought to you by Lith Token and CrossTrainedMMAfighter.com. As you see Colin's apparel there that he's wearing, Cross-Trained MMA Fighter has some great t-shirts for sale. I'm not sure what's in stock right now, but Colin, you can let people know.
Thank you. We've got like 8 left.
Oh, wow.
Maybe like 1 large, or I think maybe 2 larges, about like 5 mediums, and like 1 or 2 small. Hit us up. I'm running a special, and these are top quality shirts with all the different ink colors. You got the warrior symbol in the Chinese lettering, and then you've got different colors in the front and the back and that filigree, whatever the hell that is. So it's not inexpensive at all. And with the 30 single comb cotton, I'm willing to put them out there and just blow out the rest for like virtually no profit. As you guys might know, when you run less than like 500 t-shirts, you're not getting them for $4 or $7 or even like $8. So they're definitely a lot more than that. And I think I ran like 100 or 200 and sold a lot of them over the last couple of years. But love to get rid of the rest and get a cross-trained MMA fighter shirt on one.
Goes to support everything that we're doing here, guys. It may seem like a small amount, but it's a huge amount to us. It really helps keep things going.
Absolutely.
So definitely do that. Check that out, CrossTrainedMMAfighter.com. Hit up Colin for sizes, and then definitely also hit up Lith Token at lithtoken.io. Make sure to follow on Telegram, add Lith Token. I am actually the blockchain architect over there. I do nerd out, so everybody that tried to make fun of me within the last year and a half for being a nerd in the comments, I'm proud of being a nerd. So yeah, thank you for that. We are doing some cool things over there. We are making physical NFTs a reality, and we're actually doing it the right way with a full-fledged non-fungible token protocol for the physical aspect as well. First of its kind, really cool stuff. But also tied in with the sustainability and ethics side of things, and trying to take I'm going to go ahead and say it. We're trying to take a progressive idea and provide a capitalist solution to it without having to go progressive with it. So making both the left and right put their money where their mouth is, and doing the right thing. That's really what it boils down to. So, Colin, we've got a couple awesome guests here tonight. The first one was one of our first guests. I think it was number 4 that we ever had.
Really?
Something like that. He was. Yeah.
I know, because I see communications between us and him in 2017. I didn't know it was early 17. I think he.
It was. He was in that first group. Colin.
Yeah, he might have been like 6th or 7th guest we ever had, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. He was on one of the He was on one of the. I think Frank Shamrock, and because we brought him on a second time.
Yeah.
And we had Fabiano again, and somebody else. It was it was like 5 or 6 hour episode that Bert was on.
Okay, nice. Yes, and that one I remember had Chris Brown at the end, our good friend Chris Brown, that we've had on many times. I think he was the last guest. And yeah, that was a great show. So many great guests on that. We might have had Kung Lee on that show also. I got to give him a call if he's available. Love to talk to him. It's been a long while.
Right? Oh man, we've had enough seasons here to call it amazing.
Yes.
Guys, and we definitely need some support and love shown with shares, comments, If you want to throw any donations our way, we definitely appreciate it over there on the Hannibal TV. Good way to throw tips at us and support the Hannibal TV at the same time.
Absolutely.
So do that, and we'll be forever grateful.
Yes,
we do have to keep the show going, guys. We come out of pocket for this every week, and donations always help. You can also hit us up with messages. I do accept Lyft token, actually. If you buy and send it to me, I can send you my wallet address for you to send it to. Love everybody out there, and beware of scammers offering Lyft token, by the way. We do not give stuff away unless it's through an official exchange.
Right.
And yeah, we'll never be doing these giveaways.
Yeah,
there are people pretending to be us.
Yeah, someone actually, and it's weird because I thought in the middle of the night Adam was up posting stuff, which he usually may be up late, but he's not posting stuff, and it was a Lyft token talking about some rewards, and then it had a picture that's on my my profile with me in a Hawaiian shirt giving the thumbs up and smiling. And when I thought that Adam did it, I'm like, that's interesting. I would have thought Adam would say, hey, Colin, you know, could we use your picture to promote Lyft token, which I don't think he would do because they've got other people there that are involved. I'm not directly involved. And then it turns out it wasn't him. It was some scumbag scammer who literally is trying to rip off people, use the Lyft token name without permission, and throw my picture up there, you know, with the thumbs up. So that sucked. But yeah, don't be
well, don't be surprised. In the crypto world, a lot of people try scams like that all the time. I have people pretending to be me. Man, I need to have a blue check mark now, guys. You know, when that happens, watch what happens here with MMA Power Hour. It is going to happen with these scammers trying to do stuff. So
without a doubt. And I want to say hi to some of the guys that jumped in there. We got Facebook user. You know, funny thing is, it says Facebook user up here, but then I think it'll show it if we look later.
I'm pretty sure that's either Mark or Leader Fame.
Possibly so, yeah. But yeah, Feel the Power, thank you. And then we want to thank also what's the first one?
Wrestling and MMA is all about money. LOL, nothing is free. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's definitely costing us a ton of money to put this on for everybody. And you know, again, we appreciate tips and donations. So
absolutely, your
feel
support,
free to shoot them our way.
Without a doubt, we'd be very grateful. So we are still about 3 minutes away from our first cast call time.
We're right about 2 minutes. Yeah, we're right about there.
Yeah. So we could, you don't want to be early though. That's the one thing I think in life. It's better. Which is worse?
Quick question, actually. Yeah. We have about 1.5 minutes now. So, are you ready to see this mutual farewell at the end of the fight between Cowboy and Lazan?
Wow, I had not even been aware that fight was rescheduled for tonight. Not tonight, for Saturday, for this weekend's fight. So yeah, I really hope so. Because I think honestly, I really kind of feel that what Dana has told them probably is, doesn't matter win or lose, you guys are both not fighting anymore in the UFC.
I really have a feeling. I brought it up a while ago, and I think you've probably thought on it and been like, actually, that makes sense to do this fight, and then turn around and
have them both retire in the cage afterward.
Yeah, and that'll be a huge bump in just everything for UFC right now. So I think between those two legends, just kind of going. Riding off into the sunset. The sunset.
The Cowboy and the East Coast Jiu-Jitsu badass.
Right.
Yeah, without a doubt. I am ready to see that. They're both amazing. I hope they show some great technique and they can reach back into their younger days and have moments of amazing shine and crisp, punching and grappling, and then I hope no one gets hurt bad. I hope both do well, and then riding off to the sunset. God bless them, and they were both amazing. But yeah,
those of you tuning in right now, let us know your thoughts. If you think they're gonna go ahead and do a farewell for both of them, they're on the co-main event. I think they will.
And if so, I don't think it will ever have been done before. I don't remember both fighters ever in a UFC fight taking their gloves off and saying, because the winner never tends to want to do that. But I think this could be the case. It should be historic, and this would be a legendary, very memorable night. And so, yeah.
I think we're seeing a tee up for that 100%.
I think it could be, yeah.
All right, Colin. Well, actually, we are ready here. So I'm going to go ahead and give our first guest a call. We can go into that Skype dance of ours.
Awesome. I'll wait for the music this time.
Skype dance. There he is.
Hey, Bert, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All we need you to do, whenever you're ready, is to hit that video button. And there we go. We got you. You're not going to be able to see us, but we'll make sure to get you the tape afterward, or the tape, what it used to be called. But we'll make sure to get you the link. But rest assured, as long as you're in the frame, you're perfect, because we have the camera right on you. And I want to give you a proper introduction, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy to have this next guest on our show.
Something wrong here on me.
What's that? What'd you say, Bert?
Yeah, we good.
Good, dude. Beautiful. Appreciate you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to have this next guest back on the show. One of the most respected men in the world of combat sports. The man has worked with legendary boxers. The man has worked with legendary MMA fighters. The man has worked in so many different capacities that probably no one knows more about the inner workings of boxing, mixed martial arts, and combat sports than Mr. Bert Watson. Welcome back to the show, Bert.
Hey, what's up, baby?
All good, my friend. So first, I want to find out what you have going, and then we can touch on a bunch of other things. But you've been involved in so many things over the years. I think you spent like what, about 12 years with the UFC, or how long was that?
15.
15. And
Yes,
I know that you were there most of the years that our mutual friend Stitch Duran was there. Wasn't he there almost as long as you? I think maybe not quite, but almost, right?
Well, you know, Stitch and I go back even a little further than that, because Stitch and I actually started working together in boxing,
Oh, wow.
and that's when I first met Stitch. I'm not gonna throw my mind that far back to tell you I remember the first boxing match that we met, but it had to be early '80s, maybe.
Right.
You know, early to mid '80s. I met Stitch
Nice.
in boxing, and at the time, I was working with Marvis Frazier and Tyrone Frazier,
Right.
most of the Frazier clan, and then transitioning into working with Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield and Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran and Camacho and Chavez, Julio Cesar Chavez.
Yep.
And I think that the last lot or group of fighters that I transitioned with and met and was working with Stitch was Layla Ali and the Klitschko brothers.
Nice.
And that was the transition for myself into, or from boxing into MMA.
Right.
Stitch was there the entire run of the mill, baby.
Absolutely. You guys are still friends. I think you interviewed him
Yes.
for a broadcast a couple years ago, didn't you? Or was it vice versa? Or both, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he interviewed me.
Right.
But I think I saw Stitch recently at an event. I think I've seen Stitch seen him personally within the last year and a half, but I spoke to him recently. We speak very often.
Definitely. Well, you guys are both legends, and I'm so glad to know both of you. And you know, we had Stitch on, I think, last about a month ago, and so I feel really great that you were able to be available to come on tonight. I know originally you were doing some work with Joe Frazier, is how you got to work then with the other Fraziers later on, right?
Yes, that's how I initially got started. I actually in combat sports is working with Joe Frazier.
Definitely.
That was my intro into combat sports. My very first boxing event, and I say it a lot, but I'm now it's become so much a part of boxing history. But my first was March 8th, 1971. And that was Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali.
Wow. And that was their first fight. That was number one. Ali Frazier won, right?
That was my first. I mean, of course, I'm familiar with Joe Louis and, you know, back in that area, Floyd Patterson.
Right, Sonny Liston.
Watching boxing, but as far as me personally attending an event and then transitioning into working with fighters and working events, for me, it was March 8th, 1971.
Fantastic. So that's a good 5 decades now in combat sports. I know, right? You forgot your anniversary last year.
Don't do that to your brother.
Yeah, no, I know. You're still a young man. You're still a young man, Bert. You have the energy, and you look like you are, and that's the key. So You know,
Wow.
yep, I know it, right? I know time does fly,
Yes, sir.
man. I'm with you. I'm with you. So let me ask you, Joe Frazier, when
Yes.
he was in his prime, if they could have put Mike Tyson in a time machine or Joe Frazier in a time machine, and those two had fought when they were both in their prime, how would that fight have played out, you think?
Well, you had both of them were power punchers. Both of them packed a punch. But for me personally, Joe Frazier was very technically sound. He didn't rely specifically on his knockout punching power. He relied on his ability to not only take a punch, but maneuver his way through your offense with his defense, and to withstand speed and endurance. And that was something that boxers in the early days kind of really, really explored was, their endurance and their cardio. They were able to withstand, the back then they were doing 15-round fights. So the stamina was a little different.
Right.
Whereas with Mike Tyson, Mike didn't let people stand around long enough in the ring with him to see how long
Right.
if he could do 15 rounds or I don't remember Mike Tyson doing 10 or 12 rounds.
Very rarely. Very rare.
I'm sure he probably did, but I don't particularly remember. It was very rare. So I think that would be one of the things or one of the advantages that Joe would have was the fact that he could probably withstand the punching power of a Mike Tyson, and for the length of time, and going the distance of a 10-round or a 15-round fight. Because I'm going to tell you something, bro. If you sit down and watch the 3 fights that Joe had with Muhammad Ali, if you just sat and watched it, and while you were watching, imagine the technical skill levels that these two guys had, and the fact that Muhammad Ali constantly threw that jab and threw punches and flurries at Joe Frazier, and he just took them. And at some point, there was one fight. I think it was the second fight where Muhammad was on the ropes, and Joe was throwing punches at him, and Muhammad was throwing back and calling him on, and Joe reached and grabbed him and pulled him out and started throwing flurries at him. But it was that kind of thing that these guys, the skill level that they had, together with endurance. But then, like everything else, it transitioned, and athletes became more technically sound, and the skill level advanced, and everybody started dancing and throwing little quick jabs and showing their skill levels and bobbing and weaving and lights out Tony, Sugar Ray Leonard and Macho, and it all kind of transcended itself. But it was exciting. It was exciting to see and exciting to watch.
Absolutely. That was really kind of like the last really golden era in boxing, I would say, although some people, look back on maybe some part in the late 80s, maybe when you had Lennox Lewis and Holyfield and Riddick,
yes.
But here's an interesting question I don't think I've heard people talk about for a long time, and I think since all 3 men are dead now, we can maybe get your opinion here. Not that they would have minded if they were alive, but I think it was the second Ali Frazier fight. Frazier had won the first, and
Yes.
Ali and Frazier it was a war in the second, and I think in the 13th or 14th round, Eddie Futch kind of threw in the towel or stopped the fight. And
Yes.
right, and so many people, people that are not that knowledgeable fight fans are like, man, how can you do that? All he had to do was another round. And I know it's not just that simple, but I remember I think Eddie Futch was saying that that was such a brutal fight. Both men were beating each other literally to a pulp. And I think Eddie Futch felt that if this had gone on a minute more, that who knows what kind of permanent damage Joe Frazier would have had. Are you in 100% agreement with that, or do you feel, looking back on it, maybe they could have let Joe go and maybe he could have come out with a win and that fighter at least gone the distance.
You know, most trainers and trainers and most of the guys that cornermen that work with fighters, they know after working with the fighter a while, they know the amount of punishment that their fighter can endure and that their fighter can take and should take. And they also know that fighters are the last person to say, I've had enough.
Right.
And the last person to say, I'm hurt and I can't or I shouldn't go any further. You know, but it's to the job of the corner men and the trainers to know when his fighter has had enough, or when he's taken enough punishment, or when he feels that the gas tank just isn't there and he's going on sheer will. And when they do that, that's when it gets dangerous. That's when somebody can get hurt. And I can tell you, you know, it only takes one punch when a body is so exhausted to take you to another level medically.
Yeah.
It only takes one punch or one push or one elbow or one kick to the head when a body is so exhausted that it can't defend itself. And you know, most athletes in combat sports don't exactly know when it's time to, you know, they know when the bell rings, and when they hear that bell, they know that they got a minute to rest. But beyond that, they have no idea when it's time for them to pull it back a little, or they've taken too much punishment. And Eddie Futch, if you look back at that fight and you look at Joe Frazier's face, you can see the amount of punishment that he was taking or had taken. And if they had let that fight go another 5 rounds, Joe would have gone until he probably exhausted himself out.
Yeah.
So it's to the trainer and the cornerman to know when the fighter has had enough and when the fight needs to end. So I totally agree with Eddie Futch. And then you go to the next level of who that was that did that. Eddie Futch, one of the greatest trainers that ever lived.
Yep.
You know, so you don't necessarily question that.
No. Right.
You know, just like you don't question the skill level of a lot of these guys today. You know, you don't question the skill level of the trainers of today and the cut men of today. You know, and the guys that work in the background. You know what I mean? Absolutely. You know, you don't question that, because the majority today, in my case, I 100% feel obligated to looking out for fighters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who I know don't always look out for themselves.
Yep, that's true.
You know, whether it's boxing, MMA, bare knuckle, celebrity boxing, or any type of combat sports, you got to look out for these guys, and you got to pay attention to the you know, when they're tired or when you think that they've taken enough punishment, because they won't succumb to that. And they won't listen to it. Trust me.
Yeah, absolutely. They're brave warriors, and they have to have someone looking out for them, because they're just never going to quit. No, I agree. I think
that's what they do. That's what they do.
That's right. You know? That's their life. I know that Eddie Futch's main protege was Freddie Roach, and yes. I think I think Eddie would be happy how prominent Freddie has become, because I think Freddie's like just as respected as Eddie was pretty much now, isn't he?
Without a doubt. You know, Freddie Roach is, you know, he goes into the realm of a Yank Durham and you know, and Val Kilmer. I mean, he goes Val Colbert.
Yep. You know, Angelo Dundee.
He goes in Angelo Dundee and those guys. You know, Freddie Roach is probably one of the greatest trainers that ever lived, and you know, he's still going strong. And still, but you don't lose that technical skill level. You don't lose that knowledge. You know, it advances beyond your years, you know, but it stays with you, and you don't lose it. And as you see the sport develop, and I always say to guys that work with me when I do events, the foundation is always the same. The basics are always the same. It's the fluff around it that may change and may be a little different. You know, when you coordinate an event, you coordinate an event. Everything is done on a timely basis. Everything is organized. Everything's coordinated. Everything is structured, you know, and you got to do the same. Everybody has to be in a certain place at a certain time, in a certain position, regardless of what the event may be, whether it's boxing or a playwright or whatever. It's all coordinated. So
Absolutely.
the basics are always the same. It's just the fluff around it that's different.
Absolutely. Very well stated. Another throwback boxing question real quick. As we know, in MMA, there's not as much money in it as boxing, and MMA, the way MMA is set up with the promoter also being the sanctioning body, fighters can't avoid each other for years. That's one of the things that I think the MMA community, those of us who also love boxing, like better about MMA, is if you're the champion or you're the #1 contender.
Right.
Now, obviously, boxing can point out, yeah, but the Bellator champion is not going to fight the UFC champion, and the UFC champion is not going to fight the PFL champion, and the PFL champion is not going to fight one championship. I get that, but at least but at least within the organizations, we don't have fights go by for years without happening, and in boxing, we still do, unfortunately. No disrespect to boxing, but one of the fights that so many of us wanted to see happen was Mike Tyson against the returning George Foreman. And I know when George came back, he was about 38 or 39, I think. And nowadays, that's not that old. Back in those days, it was considered kind of crazy old. Nowadays, we see with a new better nutrition and medicine, 38, 39 guys, they can still be on top. But nevertheless, George was still looking good. Mike was killing it. That fight didn't happen. Who's to say who? George is a very humble man. He says, "No, I didn't want any part of Mike Tyson." I haven't heard I haven't heard Mike's opinion on that. Mike probably would have been down for that fight. What would have been the result? And did that fight? Did you ever hear anything? Did that fight ever come close to happening? Answer that first. Did that fight ever come close, or was it never even close? And then if you want to say, was it all George that didn't want it or not? And then what would have happened had that fight taken place, let's say in something like 1990 or 1989 or something like that, 91? I
actually heard rumblings of the fight in the late 80s or so, early 90s. I heard rumblings of the fight, but don't actually know of anyone actually going to the table with the fight. I tell you what I did hear. I did hear of what type of money it would have taken to bring those two together. And I knew that back then that amount of money was not going to happen.
Right.
So ultimately that fight wasn't going to happen. But Mike Tyson was a little too quick for any heavyweight.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson was a little too fast, and his size negated his length and his distance. His size kind of whatever he didn't have in length and his the fact that he was short and that he was able to bob and weave and get up inside and under, and he was quick. So and George relied a lot on his power and his ability to push you around the ring. And I don't honestly think that would have worked very well with the skill level of a Mike Tyson.
Gotcha.
I think Mike was a little too quick, but the money from what I know,
right? And
don't quote me actually on that, but everything I ever heard about it, the money was so out of whack that it
wasn't even close.
Would have never.
Yeah. Second question to coattail on that. What if it had been a time machine again and we had a 25-year-old George Foreman against Mike Tyson?
then you might have had a better fight. Because George, at 25, George was, even though he didn't look quick, you know, his movements were a little more fluid as a younger George Foreman. His accuracy was a little better. He was able to set his opponent up and land that punch, throw that uppercut, you know, or throw that body shot, or set down on his punch. As he matured, I use that word, as he matured, he relied a little more on his past skills, you know, pushing everybody off and saving that one punch, and knowing that you were, whoever was in front of him was afraid of going in to get that one shot, because they know it only took that one shot.
Yeah.
And he relied on that. But
yeah.
a younger George Foreman probably could have thrown more punches, and probably, you know, like Mike himself said, everybody's got a plan until they get hit.
Yep.
And I think he would have gotten hit a couple of times with a younger George Foreman, and it would have been a different strategy.
Absolutely. I think you
Yes,
very
sir.
well could be right. So let's talk about what's going on with you. What's happening with you? You've been involved in so many great projects over the years, but I'd love to hear what's going on, or you got anything you want to promote, or anything you're involved with, or writing or producing, or let us know, man. I'm really anxious to hear.
Well, right now I'm formerly with Bellator MMA, which I'm having a wonderful time.
Excellent.
Scott Coker and the gang over there is unbelievable, you know, and doing their fights on Showtime, and you know, you got the fights coming up in Europe, overseas, within the next couple of months. The next one's at the Mohegan Sun, and you know, I'm having a great time. They've got a lot of great talent at Bellator, and you know, it's just it's awesome, man.
Absolutely.
I'm doing that. I've got a podcast that I'm working on and just trying to put together called Legends to Legends, which I've already done four or five episodes.
Where can we find that? Where can people listen to that?
That's on MMA Junkie.
Okay.
I've done George St. Pierre. I've done Randy Couture, Chael Sonnen. The recent one is Michael Bisping.
Awesome.
So that's on MMA Junkie, and it's called Legends to Legend.
I love that.
And you know, it's where I sit down with these legends and have just regular OG chatter. You know, just on some of the times we spent together, some of the things that I could have a conversation, because these were things that I legitimately knew and worked with them, and they weren't just questions. They were just, well, what about that time, or what about this time, you know? And I've been working on that, and just recently got inducted to the International Sports Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
Which was an honor for me. It tells you that you become a wall mantle, you know, but it's also a testament to the work and the time that you put into it. So those things right now are happening with me, and I'm excited about it, and I'm having a good time. But right now, Bellator MMA is keeping me happy, baby.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that. And I remember I saw you over there in the broadcast. I should have remembered, but my mind can be frazzled sometimes and not remember everything. But I'm glad you're over there. Let me ask you real quick, with GSP, I had the action star Frank Grillo on the show here about a year and a half ago, I think it was. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's done,
yes,
you know, right, Kingdom and other stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So he had been chatting with either George St. Pierre, or you know what it was? I think he had been chatting with John Danaher or something like that. And you know, okay, George practices, you know, trains there. Yeah. And he said he can't say anything for sure, but he said, or no, it wasn't Danaher. I think somehow, you know what, it wasn't. I think it was Greg Jackson or Mike Winklejohn that he talked to, because he had stopped by there himself. And I know, you know, George used to train out of there, Jackson Wink, years ago. And he said that one of them implied that they talked to George, and that maybe there's some hope or some possibility about some comeback. But now that was about a year and a half ago. George went on record, I think about 3 years ago, saying, I'm not gonna be in my 40s fighting in a cage. That's just kind of ridiculous, you know. And and now he's, I think, about 41 or 42. What do you think? Is he going to hold to his statement that that's just not what he wants to do, or is the window closed? Has it closed, do you think, or any chance we might see George St. Pierre jumping back in?
40. I think George is 41, and he has a family.
Right.
And he has a family. But let me say that George St. Pierre's technical skill level puts him up in that GOAT status.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and those are things, as I said, you don't lose. You learn to use, and you learn how to use them. And I one thing I do know about George is that he lives right and he stayed in shape. So when you live right and you stay in shape, you can live to be 75 and keep rolling, baby.
That's right.
So I would never ever discount him with the right fight and the right person in front of him. I would never discount him being able to do that. But George is also a man of his word. If George says he's done, you can probably rely on that.
Yeah.
I also know that he's doing movies, and he's got other things that he's involved in. So financially, he's okay. But like any other athlete who is the best at what he does, you never lose that itch to perform.
Yeah.
Never lose that itch to compete.
Absolutely.
That's always going to be there. And every now and then, you can find one.
Absolutely.
Right now, you got Khabib, who is probably 3 years out, maybe
two and a half, something like that. I think maybe 3
years out. Somebody might decide to do something like that or with that.
Yeah.
But right now, I wouldn't count George out from a skill level.
Right.
But that clock ticks, and I'm sure he knows when it's time to just say, you know what, I'm done with this.
Yeah. Well stated. I would agree on all that. One of the things that I think he was looking at that was interesting was not only the matchup with Khabib, but the fact that fight would have been at 155 pounds. Had George been able to come back and take that fight and take that title, he would have been the only person in the history of the UFC to win titles at 3 different weight classes. And if he did that, that possibly might stand for another 10, 20, 50 years. Now, my question to you is, the man, I think, is about 5'10", 5'11", muscular guy, right? He came back and he fought Michael Bisping, 5 years ago? And he that was at 185.
185.
So obviously that wasn't a problem, which it wouldn't be. Can the man make 155 in his 40s, you think?
I wouldn't advise it.
Right.
I am a person that knows your body gets to a point that it says, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going back there.
Right.
I look at the scale and I say to myself, you know what? I'm going to do this. But then my body says, nah, we're not doing that.
Yeah, right.
And you got to listen to it.
Yeah.
I don't think at this stage of his career, a fight at 155. His last one was 185, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
A fight at 155 to lose almost a whole person to fight again. I think that would really take some thought.
Yeah.
Or some consideration. And you know what? If I decided to go down to 155,
Yeah.
But of course, you can hear I'm joking. You can hear me joking.
You're not going to be 155, right? Neither am I. Neither of us going to be 155. Yeah. No, I hear you.
I would definitely, if I had to say anything that I would say, I don't think that could happen or would happen or should happen. I think a fight at 155 right now might not be a great idea.
Yeah. And you know what that fight reminds me of? Remember when Hoist Gracie came back
Hoist.
and fought Matt Hughes? And I'm not trying to diminish Matt Hughes' victory, but I think
Right.
what a lot of people didn't think about is, yes, 10 years earlier, Hoist had been fighting at around 171, 175, 176. But
Right.
when he came back and fought Hughes, he had been fighting, I think, in Pride and a couple other places at around 188, 190. And he was then, I think, in his late 30s. And so when that fight was announced, I said to myself, I said, okay, well, this is going to be some kind of a catch weight, because Matt Hughes is a thick, strong man who had fought at catch weights before. And I thought they're going to make this at 180, 185. This is going to be real interesting. But when they made it at 170, that this was going to be, I think, a title fight, or even if not a title fight, it was 170 even. I just had a feeling, because Hoist didn't grow up in the American wrestling, collegiate wrestling atmosphere. Hoist Gracie is not an expert on cutting weight. I don't think Hoist Gracie cut weight for any fight except for that fight, right?
But if you remember, think about it now.
Because you were there, I know. Yeah.
Hoist Gracie started his career fighting people 3 times his weight.
That's true too. That is true. I
exaggerate a little bit.
Well, yeah, double or 100 pounds ever. Yeah.
But he started his career fighting people almost twice his weight.
Yeah.
So, and he did that for quite a long time, and was very successful, and won at that level. You know, at UFC 1 or whatever he started. So he actually fought that way through his career. So now to get to a point where when he fought Matt Hughes, in my mind, it was, you know, he was basically fighting at a weight maybe he should have always been, which at this point, sometimes it's like driving a car.
Right.
So if you don't put it in the right gear, I don't care how fast you go, it's going to jerk. It's not going to move on you.
Yes.
You know, and Hoist Gracie finally put it in gear, and you know, he stopped fighting guys twice his weight, and not only that, but his technical skill level was off the chart. You know, and you can never get around that. You know, I don't remember or recall the fight, but I think it was Matt Hughes, and I remember when he had him in an arm bar. Mm-hmm. And I saw the look on Hoist's face where he just relaxed his body and rotated out of it. Wow,
right. Yep.
Which was the most amazing thing I think I can ever remember seeing.
Yeah, just great technique.
And it told me that was a guy you would never question his skill or techniques.
Yeah, but he did look weak at that weight. You got to admit, he did look kind of skinny and gaunt there. You know.
Yeah. But you know what? Yes, he did. But who doesn't?
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Okay. When these guys cut, I have yet to see a guy get on a scale to cut weight that wasn't mad, pissed off, and looked like he hadn't eaten in 30 days.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And
in my career,
right?
Okay,
right.
But I'll back up. In my MMA career, in boxing it was a little different.
Yeah.
Because in boxing, if a guy 3 weeks or 5 weeks out or 4 weeks had 5 pounds to go, something was wrong.
Yeah.
In MMA, I got to MMA and guys lost 15, 20 pounds in a week.
Yeah. Yep.
Which for me, that was totally unbelievable.
Yeah.
So in boxing, when it came time for weigh-ins, the guys didn't look like that. But when I got to MMA, and these guys started cutting weight, and I started to see how they were looking when they came for weigh-in, everybody was gaunt, you know, and looked like they had lost 30 pounds. I'm like, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
And then fight night, it was right.
Yeah. It's amazing, you know, what they can do, especially, you know, people that learned it when they're young or that are wrestling when they're young. They just got it down. Like I remember a buddy, one of my jiu-jitsu training brothers who had wrestled in high school. told me that he said he was competing at and I don't know all the collegiate or high school wrestling divisions, so forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but I think he said he was competing at something like 154, and then his coach asked him, hey, can you next week be 146? And then he said, yeah. And then 3 days into it, his coach said, how's it going? He said, good. I'm down to about 149. And they said, can you be 137? And he's like, well, I guess so. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to be, but the wrestlers, and my producer, Dr. Roorda, wrestled in school in Iowa. So he probably knows about that. And but man, the pain that these guys can deal with and what they can do to get rid of that water is amazing. Isn't it?
I won't mention any names.
Yeah.
Out of respect, but I think the most I've seen is 26 pounds in a week.
Wow.
And I won't mention the name.
Right.
Well, 24 and a half it was.
Oh, wow.
And when I say a week, literally, if fights a Saturday, fighters come in on that Monday or that Tuesday. And it depends on where they're coming from. If they're coming from out of the country, they may come in on that Sunday to give a couple days of ground time.
Yeah.
But if not, the fight Saturday, they're coming on Monday. I've seen as much as 24 and a half.
Crazy.
I've seen 10 pounds in one day.
Wow, that's crazy. My producer told me, and this was not a professional level, but he said in either junior high or high school, he cut 30 in approximately a week or so, right? It was one of a teammate of his.
Okay, and I can mention, I'll mention that name.
Okay.
But I've seen Gleason Tabal.
Yes.
Cut like 10 in a day or 9 in a day.
Oh yeah.
Dennis Seaver.
Yep.
He did that with ease and used to look at me, spoke very little English, if any.
Right, a German fighter.
He always smiled.
Nice.
And when he got on the scale that morning, and I looked at the scale and looked at him, he could see on my face I wasn't happy.
Right.
He could hear in my voice, the tone of my voice, I wasn't happy.
Yeah. And
then the weigh-in came in, and he got up to the scale. He would walk over to the scale, and he would point to me to come on with him.
Oh, wow.
I would go over to the scale. He'd get up on it. He'd look at me and smile. He wouldn't even look at the person counting his weight.
Right.
He would look at me, smile, and the person would call out his weight. And he would put this big grin on his face.
Right.
And I was like, whoa.
Crazy.
But he knew he was going to do that.
Yeah.
So, but I've always been amazed at the amount of weight that these guys cut. But somebody said to me a while back, he said, Bert, relax. These guys are wrestlers.
Right. Yep.
This is what they do.
Yep.
I had to learn that, and I had to understand it. It took a long time to adjust to it. I never understood it, but I had to adjust to it because it was the way of what it was.
Yeah.
Chuck Liddell would come in the day of the weigh-in needing to lose a nice hefty little sum.
Yep, chunk of weight.
And what I did was I would always weigh in day. I always made the scale available for everybody at 8 o'clock in the morning, from 8 to 10 or 9 to 11, to not only check weight but also to fit their gloves. And that was a part of what I did and a part of my routine. Chuck Liddell would come in and catch me setting the scale up at 8:30, at 7:30, I'm sorry, and he would get on it, and he would get off that scale and put on his sweats and his warm-up suits or whatever, and he would run the building until weigh-in time.
Wow.
And he came in for weigh-in, boom.
Always on it.
And he was always on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Always. I think in my career, I can count the guys and on 2.5 hands, guys that didn't make weight. And that's a 15-year career.
Yeah.
of guys that didn't make weight.
Very rare, very rare.
Yeah.
So we got about 5 minutes left with you, Bert, and I want to throw you some rapid fire questions because I got so much still to ask, and maybe give me some somewhat short answers because I want to get in a lot of stuff that people want to hear. Okay, first I'm going to say, with Gleison Tibau, he was amazing. For people that don't remember that name, and if you were a fan of Khabib Nurmagomedov, go look at that fight. That was probably the fight that was the closest to being a question mark who won that fight. I remember watching that as it happened, and I liked Tibau, and I hadn't even heard of Khabib, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna cheer for Tibau, and I kind of felt that Tibau won. It was real close, but one thing I remember with Tibau being as big and strong and muscular a lightweight that anyone's ever seen. I think he walked around at 195 or 200 and fought at 155. He, and it was a younger Khabib, and Khabib's favor, it was a younger Khabib who wasn't as seasoned. But man, he couldn't do anything with a Brazilian, really. He couldn't really take him down, which is crazy because you see Khabib now, he takes you down no matter who you are. But Gleison Tibau was like, man, I'm way too strong for you. Don't try too much to do that because you're just wasting your energy. And Khabib was like, okay, I guess,
Gleison was a whole different animal, man.
Yeah, he was.
And still today going strong.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let me see another one. Over in Bellator, there are several UFC fighters, or a few at least, that I think were in the UFC back when you were there. I think Czech Congo is one of them. Who else are you seeing in Bellator that you knew back when you were in the UFC?
Ryan Bader.
Ryan Bader, right? Yep. Not too many, right? Though, probably a couple.
No. But there's about three. There's about 3 or 4. But all of the trainers.
Yeah.
The champion. He's a champion.
The guy who's a champ now in Bellator. Which weight class?
Yes. And Nems is his manager.
Who's his manager?
Nems.
Ooh. Is this the
Musasi?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember him with the UFC.
Absolutely, and he had some great fights. Musasi was such a talented fighter. I still remember that fight that he had. I forgot who it was against. Yeah, no, I remember. Remember his first fight with Jacare before either one was in the UFC, right? And Jacare is a big favorite, and Musasi caught him with an up kick from the ground. I think knocked him cold.
Wow.
So many,
And Yoel Romero's another one.
Oh, yes. Yoel now is what? He's 1-1 because I think he lost his first one in a close fight and he won his second one. He's a talented guy. Now, he's probably up where he always should have been at 205, although he was fine at 85, but now at least he can eat something. And what a specimen. How does a man in his mid-40s still look like that? That's amazing, isn't it?
You live right.
Yeah. Yes.
You live right, you eat right, you sleep right, you do right.
Yes, absolutely. What do you think, really quick, of the crossover now where boxing and MMA are kind of becoming friendly to an extent, trying to make these super fights? Are you cool with the people like the Paul brothers, Jake and Logan Paul, and KSI, and these other celebrities and influencers jumping in it? Do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing, or doesn't really touch you one way or the other?
I never want to take away what a guy creates to make a living.
Right.
I always think that it's always good for any sport when somebody can come in and create a different way to make a living, but at the same time keep it at a high level. I'm always for that, but I've never been one for, the time when say McGregor fought Mayweather,
right,
and then they went back to Prospective Sports. As I've never been one for that.
Right.
For that, but the Paul brothers and people like that, I'm 100%. But stay where you've made your name and your living.
Right. Stay in your lane. Are you cool with bare knuckles boxing, or what's your thought about that?
I am. You're talking to a person that's seeing gloves at 24 ounces, 22 ounces, 8 ounce, 10 ounce, and 4 ounce.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference between a 4 ounce glove, hand wraps, and going at it?
Absolutely.
I thought 4-ounce gloves was bare knuckle to me.
Right.
So, it was like, wow, what are they going to do with this little thing?
Right. Absolutely.
And in bare knuckle, they still wrap their hands to a certain degree, and they do put something in it. Absolutely. They don't just go on there just straight up,
Absolutely. Some people are criticizing the fact that you have some 35 and 40-year-old MMA fighters who, not like a 35 or 40-year-old MMA fighter who is at the top of their game, but you got some 35 and 40-year-old fighters who are kind of, not at the top of their game in MMA anymore, and so they jump over to bare knuckle. And sometimes some people are criticizing that, but to me, I think the ruggedness and the grittiness of MMA fighters is helping them because they're going over there. Where else are they going to go? Right, that's true. That's true.
Where else are they going to go?
Yeah, and they're doing fine for the most part, aren't they?
If you can go in retirement and sustain a living and do what you know how to do, leave those athletes alone.
Yep, I agree.
They know when they've had enough of something.
Yep.
So these guys going to bare knuckle, it's become the next transition. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. Mm-hmm. These guys know. When they get hit enough or right, but I'm never going to find anything totally wrong with that. As long as they're medically cleared and they take care of it medically and make sure that they have the right doctors and the correct medical staff around it, I'm 100%.
Absolutely. And I know probably Chris Lytle is someone you remember back in the day in the UFC. He's awesome on the call, and BKFC is taking care of their people. I think David Feldman's doing a great job. What do you think? We got Michael Venom Page, the Bellator man, going up against the former UFC fighter in Mike Perry. What do you think? That's going to be a crazy fight. I'm sure probably since Page is the Bellator man, you probably got to be cheering a little bit for him. But how do you think that fight's going to play out? Can Michael Page do something when he can't use any sort of kicks or elbows or jumping anything? Can his hands pay dividends in this fight, you think?
These guys learned to fight before they could use ground game and other stuff like that.
Yep.
In order to get into a ground game, you had to have been out in that street fighting somebody somewhere. Okay, so it's a thing where these guys, it's what they do all their lives. They're used to doing it, and Michael Perry and these guys, they're still at a high level.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% for it, and I think it's going to be a great fight.
Absolutely. I mean, MVP is such a character, and so is Mike Perry. Say it again. I didn't hear that.
I said, yeah, he's a character.
He is, and it's funny because you
got to be a character when I find you a character. Okay?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, because you've known a ton of characters, that is for sure. But yeah, I can't wait to see how they clash, because it's funny. You got the white guy who's almost like the street ghetto guy in this one, and then the black guy is the polished, cocky Englishman. It's just a great blend. I think it's a great a matchup. Should be a lot of fun, huh?
It's going to be a great fight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I look forward to it. Well, Burt Watson, let us know how people can support you on any social media or any other project or merchandise or anything that you got. Throw out there and let us know, please.
Please. I love it when you follow me on Burt Watson For Real on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I've got a line of T-shirts on Ado Clothing that you guys need to go and check out. Burt Watson Promotions. We rolling all night long. Great looking T-shirts. Check it out on Ado Clothing. Just go to the website and hit me up. Reach out to me. Anytime you reach out to me on social media, I'll holler back at you, baby. Anytime.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you, Burt. It's such a pleasure to chat with you, man. Huge respect to you, my friend. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time. We'll talk soon.
Always a pleasure, baby. Appreciate it.
Definitely.
Peace.
Peace. Have a great night. Awesome. Burt Watson, so much respect for him. 75. He gave away that he was 75 years old.
Wow, he's looking nice and young.
Isn't he, man? The energy he has from that positive attitude and it just, God bless him, man. He's a great guy.
I'm hoping I can start getting my youth back and start looking like a lot of these guys.
I hope so.
I quit smoking. I'm vaping now, but I'm gonna quit doing that too over some time. And
there you go. You can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
State of mind and taking good care of your health.
Are we going straight into Rod here?
Yep.
All right, let's give him a call.
And I gave him a little bit of a flexible window, so we didn't go over. He's ready for right around this time.
Cool. Perfect. Everybody, make sure to hit up lifttoken.io, sponsor of the show. And it's at MMA Power Hour if you're over on the Hannibal TV. If you're on our social media already, head on over to the Hannibal TV on both YouTube and Facebook. We appreciate that. We're going to go in that Skype dance.
Do it. That's it. Hey, Rod, sorry, I was choking on my water. Can you hear me? There you are. Excellent. Rod Galvin. You're not going to be able to see us, but as long as you stay in the frame, camera's on you, and then we'll show you that everything looks great after it. Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, happy to have this guest on the show for the first time. He is working with our good friend for 5 years, almost since the beginning of this show, Jason Lederfine, one of the executives over at Cage Fury Fighting Championship. This is one of the great matchmakers over there at CFFC and Fury Grappling, Mr. Rod Galvin. Welcome to the show, Rod.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
My pleasure. So CFFC and then Fury Grappling. Are you only involved in the CFFC, or are you still doing your job for the Fury Grappling as well?
No, I don't. I don't do really anything with the Fury Grappling. I stick to the MMA side of things, and I matchmake for. I'm the assistant matchmaker for the MMA part of it, but I don't do any of the matchmaker or anything for the grappling. I'm just a fan of it.
No problem.
Basically.
Well, as we're MMA Power Hour, this is mostly MMA people, and we'll talk MMA, and that is fantastic. So many great people, and I know you told me, but instead of me looking at my text, let's throw out some of those names that have made it to the bigger shows, that came from and worked their way through Cage Fury Fighting Championships, working for you and Jason Lederfine as far as fighting.
Well, the probably the biggest name is Kimbo Slice.
Nice.
His MMA debut was with CFFC.
Oh wow! Did not know that.
So, yeah, he was with CFFC. Paul Felder, Pat Sabatini, Sean Brady.
Yeah,
we got 3 or 4 just on this weekend's fight night card. We have like 3 or 4 CFFC vets fighting this weekend. About every card, whether it's a paper or fight night, you got some kind of alum that's been with CFFC.
Absolutely. Let me read out some names here, and sorry to step on your words briefly, but I'm looking at some, but first I'll tell you the ones you told me. Tony Kelly, who's fighting this Saturday in the UFC. You got Jeremiah Wells, Jasmine Jasuda Vicious, who just made her debut, or she may have had a couple fights. Awesome. Kyle Dawkins, and my producer just pulled up a list that shows, go up a little bit back, we got Alex Perez, Aljamain Sterling, Andre Petrovsky, Anthony Smith, Bill Algeo, Brian Kelleher, Charlie Brenneman, Chase Hooper, Chris Dawkins, along with Kyle Dawkins, Dan Ige, Dan Miller, Dustin Jacoby, Aaron Blanchfield, Jim Miller, George Sullivan, Jared Gordon. Man, wow. Yeah. Absolutely crazy. Just as I didn't, and you guys have been around. How long has CFFC been around? Like 4 or 5 years? 6, 7?
No, they've been around. It was Kimbo Slice's.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he's been dead for
MMA debut, so they were around back then. I've only been with CFFC since 2020. I was with a promotion called V3 Fights,
and that was with Jason. Right, that's where Jason was.
I was with Jason. Actually, I know Jason. I'm a head high school wrestling coach, and Jason was a wrestling coach here in Memphis, and he wanted to do an MMA fight. So, of course, I was a matchmaker, so I put him on.
Oh wow!
And he did such a good job with his social media following and promoting the fight that I talked to Nick, who was our president of E3 Fights, and I said we need to get this guy we need to bring him on board, social media or something, or do something. So Nick brought him on board, and then Jason just worked his way up to like announcing and doing like back of the house fighter relation type things like that. So so I've been there since CFFC since 2020. Same with Jason, and some more vets. Like when we were with V3 Fights and CFFC acquired us, there's still some names like Bryce Mitchell, and KGB Lee, and names like that. So they're not CFFC vets, but they're V3 Fights vets, and like they kind of acquired us. So it's kind of like the UFC, how they consider Strikeforce and WEC kind of their alum. I guess doing the same thing with CFFC with V3 Fights.
Absolutely. And Jason's a great guy. We actually we first went on the air about 5.5 years ago in March of 2017. And I think it was only like 6 to 9 months later, Jason was out here in Los Angeles, and we had lunch with him, both myself and my producer, Dr. Adam Roorda. And we've been friends with him ever since. He's an amazing guy. And I remember we'd interview him like maybe once every 5 to 7 months on our show, even sometimes more than that. And I remember once I said, Jason Lederfine, this is the man in charge of V3 fighting. And he would say, well, I don't know if Nick Harmeyer would love to hear that so much, but he said it's not, I said, okay. So he said, yeah, Nick Harmeyer was the guy in charge of V3 fighting. But Jason, I know, was always in, a top guy as you are, and now you guys are killing it at CFFC on Fight Pass. And Jason is also involved in doing the announcing and working with the Fury Grappling himself, because he's a wrestler.
He does. He does work with.
Absolutely. So many great fighters and so many great fights. So what I want to do is talk to you a little bit about the CFFC, and then I'm also going to want you to jump in and give me your thoughts on some of the UFC fights coming on this Saturday's card. All right, so let's we'll save the best for last. Not that the best isn't talking about CFFC, but people love to hear predictions on the UFC, right? So we're gonna all make you guys wait maybe 10 minutes on that. So so CFFC, so many great people come through there, and since you're on UFC Fight Pass, I think it gives you that extra oomph, that extra push, that people know that even though the average casual fan of the UFC and MMA may not know CFFC, they can see it on UFC Fight Pass, and that means something. So you do get people that come to CFFC, and I remember I had a great interview, I think it was 4 years ago, with Jason about how do you deal with these young guys who may not have much of a following, and they may not be that reliable, they may not be necessarily planning on making weight, and they may actually bail out of the fight a couple of days before. And he said, all that stuff happens. He said, you just don't know. But he said he takes it really seriously. And he said, I think he said he's not trying to hurt anyone's career or be a mean guy, but he said if you show up there was V3 back then, and you're goofing around and you're asking for more and more stuff, and you want more money and you want more accommodations, and you're not bringing any fans, you have no social media following, and then you don't make weight or you don't show up for the fight, he said don't count on never fighting for V3 again. And he said, that's the only thing you guys can do to defend yourself. But is it a little bit better now that it's on UFC Fight Pass? Do you have maybe a better, more reliable class of guys with managers maybe coming to you, or do you still sometimes have to deal with this crap where the unreliable guy, is going to show up and waste your time?
You still, I think even at the highest level, UFC, Dana White says, he said, I wake up every morning, I just know bad shit's going to happen. So it happens at the highest level, but it does happen a lot less because these guys are more professional. They have a manager. They, they take it more seriously because, they may fight in front of like 1,000 people, but they got millions of eyes watching them, worldwide, because we're on Fight Pass. And some of those eyes are really important ones, because I remember my very first event with CFFC in 2020, the very first event, it was during the pandemic. And The very first, we did a two nights in a row, and Mick Maynard, he tweeted out the fights that were on, and he was watching the CFFC fights. So I mean, these fighters know that like the matchmakers, they watch CFFC, they watch all the events on Fight Pass, and I think that's how we got the deal for Fury Grappling, because they have so much respect for our us as an MMA company. They know they're getting a solid product. So it is, we do have to deal with some stuff still, but it is a lot less when then we're just like a local show. Being a regional show helps a lot.
Absolutely. So you guys have, I think, the same weight classes as all MMA organizations. I know I've spoken with Jason about this, and I think the last time was I think we had Jason on the show a few months ago, but I don't know if I asked him about this, but I know years back I did. I'm one of the guys that's so anxious to see some of these additional weight classes. I just had the fighting legendary combat sports professional Burt Watson. I don't know if you remember, he used to be at the UFC. They call him
we worked with him at Alliance.
Nice.
When we were all, and that's how we know the CFFC guys. And Burt was with Alliance, so I know Burt.
Awesome, that's right, and he's a fantastic guy. I wanted to ask him this, but we ran out of time, and I didn't want to hold you up. God, maybe I'll ask him his opinion off the air, and then I can let people know. But here's what I'm thinking. We were talking about weight cutting. MMA fighters are cutting a mad amount of weight compared to boxers, and I think a part of it is that there are so many more weight classes in boxing. Like if you're feeling the guys are too big for you, just go down literally like 5 or 7 pounds, and you're in another weight class. And if you feel those guys are too big for you, go down maybe another 5 or 7 pounds. Whereas in MMA, it's just these big gaps. 155 to 170 is huge. 170 to 185 is huge. 185 to 205 is huge. And I remember, I think it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I should check to see what really exactly was said, because I hate not to be able to 100% say with certainty what I'm talking about. But I remember an announcement was made that at least like Nevada Athletic Commission and California and maybe New Jersey, if not, like a general statement was released saying athletic commissions of whichever jurisdiction are okay with the following weight class changes. They're okay if you take out 170 and put in 165 and 175, and then put in 195 and 225. And I thought that, to me, would be perfect. And we've covered several UFC events. We're a member of Crandall Media with Bellator, UFC, PFLN, One Championship. And I asked Dana, other than possibly down an atom weight for women, which he said could be possible, the other ones, his answer was, I'm just not interested. And I think I got to ask him about it one other time at a different event, and he said, man, we got we're trying to get people, enough fights in the divisions we have, and it's hard to get everyone that we have signed to fight. And but what's your thought? Because to me, I think it would stop some of the dramatic weight cuts. I think it's more reasonable because men and women, you got all these in-betweeners. I mean, it's great if it's a perfect weight cut for you to be 185 or 205 or 170, but a lot of guys, it isn't. They should be 175, 165, 195, or 225. I mean, what's your thought? And I guess it doesn't have to be a blanket yes or no. Maybe you like a couple of those divisions and not others. What do you think?
Well, a couple of things. See, I'm a wrestling coach, and
nice.
We have a thing at the beginning of every season. It's called a hydration test, where the kids they have to be fully hydrated, and they check to make sure they're hydrated. And if they're not hydrated, they can't even take the test, and they have to come back another time and take it. But they'll put you on a scale, and it will measure like your height, your weight, your body fat, and it will tell you how low you can drop safely. So like you can, in November, if you weigh 195 pounds, when you step on the scale at the beginning of the season, they'll say, okay, by the end of the season, if you do everything correctly, you can safely make it to 160 and still be still be safe.
Okay.
And just about every state is using it for wrestling. I actually wouldn't mind seeing that in MMA.
Right.
But I believe Habib Nurmagomedov, you know how he has Eagle FC, he has his new promotion. I believe he's like implementing these new weight classes.
Yes.
I believe they have like a 165 and a 175. So I would like to see how that plays out with his promotion. I think if they ever did want to change about it, I think Habib is it's a good it's a good way to see how it works because he's actually doing it.
Absolutely. And out of those those four changes or additions, taking out 170 and putting in 165, 175, and then putting in 195 and 225, are any of those more appealing to you, or all of them about the same, or what's your thought on all four of those changes?
I know that. I mean, the biggest gap has got to be, the 205 to heavyweight.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing a
225,
like a 225 weight class in there, or 230 or something like that. I actually think that would be, because you weigh 207 pounds. You can be going against like a Brock Lesnar type guy, or a Francis Ngannou, and like you're outside. So I wouldn't mind adding that in there. I've been doing this for a while, so like I'm pretty set. I'm pretty used to these weight classes and stuff. I'd much rather see them keep these weight classes, but kind of follow what wrestling's doing and kind of take a hydration test to see where you can actually cut safely and do it that way. I like that.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
definitely. And what's interesting? I'm not sure if you knew this, because a lot of people don't really focus on organizations other than their own, unless maybe it's the UFC because they're so high profile. But one championship, you may have heard, is doing something. But what they're doing is so unusual because, and it took me a second to kind of put it together, because at first it looked to me like they were just changing the name of the weight class, or changing the weight with the name. Right, I was thinking, okay, that's all they've done is that is flyweight, is bantamweight, and bantamweight. That's not really it. Here's what it is. Let's look at the lightweight division for UFC, CFFC, Bellator, everyone but one championship. Lightweight division, a guy is going to have to weigh in at 155 for the title fight, 156 for a non-title fight, and then whatever the hell he weighs in 36 hours later is fine, and that's usually going to be probably in the 170s, right?
Yeah.
So you got a guy that's they're going to make 155, 156, and the guys will be somewhere between 170 and 180 a day and a half later. So with one, what it is you have to make, I think it would be, instead of 155 for lightweight, you have to make 145. But the highest you can end up being on fight day is 155.
Right.
So
some some states with wrestling actually, they do that.
Right. So technically, what one has done is saying that if 155 makes you a lightweight, then our guys are fighting at lightweight limit on fight day. They had to make featherweight limit a day and a half earlier, but they are fighting as lightweights on fight day. Whereas for every other organization, our guys are making the lightweight limit at whatever the hell they want to weigh the day after that. They're welterweights pretty much.
States or just in Asia?
Say that again.
Are they doing it just in Asia? Or are they trying to do it in the United? Because they're coming to the U.S. Are they trying to do it here too, or just out there?
That's a good question, because they haven't had even one event yet here. Although now with the UFC having gone to Singapore, I wonder what Chatri Sityodtong feels about that. I've got to make a bigger push, because we're on very good terms with them, and Chatri's a busy guy, and I'm going to see if we can get him on the show. I can't wait to talk to him. One of the things they've said, though, is that with Chatri being so busy, you can count on the fact that if he's willing to schedule with you, there's a fair chance he won't make the appearance. not because he wants to be a dick, but it's just time. But that's a good question, because they're doing it there, but that's where they've had all their events. Although I would imagine they would want to do that here, right?
Right.
Although there's no reason why they would be forced not to. Would there be? I don't think so.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You know what I wonder though is the UFC went to Singapore. One is based in Singapore. Do you think? And let me put this as complete speculation, because I'm not trying to get you to talk against the UFC. But
no.
I wonder if they realized, okay, we've gone all over the world. Maybe we're not as big in Asia as one championship, but we are the most famous organization for the rest of the world. Let's just rub it in Chatri's face a little bit and do an event in Singapore, because you almost wonder if Chatri might take it that way. Why the hell would they come here to Singapore? They could go anywhere else in the world they want,
right?
And they're going to come on here onto our turf with a UFC, really? You know, I wonder if he's thinking that. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. And it was such a good show too. Did you watch the pay-per-view?
It was great. Yes, it was amazing. It was a great card.
You know, I don't know. I don't know if it was that, or it's just, you know, it just the date and the arena worked out for him, because you know Weili Zhang, you know, she's huge out there.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I know now that things are opening back up. You know, they're venturing out to different places, and they've never been to Singapore before, have they?
No. I'm almost positive. Yeah, I think that they haven't. And one has like what 70% of their events or 60% of their events in Singapore. So you know, you almost wonder if if this is going to expedite one's ambition to come to the United States, and if they do, you know, it would be interesting. You know, here's what would be interesting. If they do, it'd be interesting to see if Chatri could use his resources and actually get an event in Vegas. Because I remember years ago, they used to say, when the UFC was being held at casinos, that like, look, we're bringing your casino a ton of money. Don't disrespect us and let other organizations fight in Las Vegas, because then you might find that we're never going to do another show at your casino. And so Las Vegas has kind of got to be known as a place that you're not going to put on an MMA show, especially high profile, if anything, if your name is not the UFC.
Has PFL been to Vegas though? Didn't they do a couple shows out there?
I don't think so. I may be wrong, but I thought they're always on the East Coast around Florida. And I honestly think it's been years since anyone but the UFC has done a show in Vegas. So, but that would be interesting if Chatri could wangle that, and all of a sudden because you know it almost would be apropos. With UFC saying, look at this, big UFC in Singapore, it'd be ironic if 2 months later, Chatri announces, look at this, big one championship fight in Vegas.
I know Ray Sefo, you know, the president of the PFL. I'm pretty sure he lives in Vegas,
right?
Because I think he trains and teaches at Extreme Couture.
Yes.
I thought PFL went to Vegas. I could be wrong though. I thought they did a show there, like back when there were no fans, but I thought they did something there, but I could be wrong.
I could be wrong thinking not though, too. You never know. So, yeah. So let me ask you, okay, we got a little bit of time. So, what was I going to ask? So yeah, the weight, so it does make it definitely different. So, you know, you're fighting at the actual weight meant for that weight class, but you know, either way, I mean, the bottom line is all organizations are doing a great job, and I'm not trying to just favor them because of the hydration test, but anyway, CFFC is doing some great stuff, some amazing fighters. Has anyone surprised you? Well, I don't know how you're going to say this, because you don't want to make it was there anyone that you kind of believed in the CFFC, but maybe the kid himself or herself didn't believe in themselves that much, and maybe their fights weren't the greatest? Was there anyone that has made it to the UFC that either they didn't think they could, or you guys were surprised that they did? I don't know how you can answer this question comfortably, but maybe you can.
Maybe at the beginning of their career, but you know, the ones who get picked up from CFFC to the UFC, by the time they're getting picked up, I mean, it's pretty much expected. If you are a champion in CFFC or are dominating in CFFC and have a good number of wins, like you're going to get called up to the big show. So I think once they start winning in CFFC, I don't think, they had any really self-doubt, because, if you're succeeding in CFFC, you're battle tested and you're ready for the UFC. There may be some that, earlier on in the career that maybe, but not by the time you get picked up from CFFC, you're pretty battle tested. And I don't think there's self-doubt. I think once you're successful in CFFC, you're pretty much mad
if they don't
until the UFC calls you, because you're ready for it.
Absolutely.
Like, you'll see post-fight interviews. Dana, I'm ready. Call me. Mick, Sean. Hit me up there. So once you're successful in CFFC, you're not. There's no more self-doubt. They're ready for the big show, and they know it.
That makes sense. On the flip side of that, in a more positive light, can you throw out some names? And I'm sure there's always going to be someone that someone forgets, so no one can be mad at you, I don't think. But can you throw out maybe some names of some guys and girls that you think sometime this year or early next year that we should be seeing probably in the UFC that are in CFFC now?
Man, I was it last month in May. Manuel Suiza, he's like 8-0 or 9-0. He's not our champion, but he can get the call. He actually, because we're on Fight Pass, and I believe it was in Philly or Jersey, I forget where it was. A pretty popular bar or restaurant in Brazil totally shut down, and just his fans went there and watched Fight Pass there.
Wow.
He's a huge deal. Yeah, you can definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the call up soon. A couple of our guys, I don't know if I can say anything yet, but you can always expect a couple of our guys to be on the Contender Series this year, which is going to be starting soon. But there's some guys like our 135 title, Damon Blackshear. He's like 12-4 right now. He's had 2 or 3 successful title defenses. He can get the call up soon. Any one of our champions, can get the call up, and we're not surprised. It makes my job and Aries' job a hell of a lot tougher, because they've called up guys on fight week before, and we've had to let them out. Let them out of the contract, and fights have fallen through like a couple days before the fight because UFC called them up. But that's what our job. Our job is to get these guys ready and get called up to the UFC.
Absolutely.
So any one of our champions can get called up at any time, and no one's shocked.
Very cool. Do you have the most well-known 3 women's weight classes in CFFC, or what women's weight classes do you have?
15, 25, and 35.
Okay.
And I believe and I think all those are vacant now because they got called up to the UFC. Lee Stidge did. Yeah, they get called up, and so those are vacant right now.
Gotcha. Speaking about women's fighting, on this show last Tuesday, we shouted out that we didn't say bet your whole paycheck or even that it was any sort of a sure thing, but we shouted out, both myself and my producer, that we think Taila Santos has the great chance for the upset. And I don't know what it was about that girl. I watched her closely. She seems like a big, strong girl for that weight class. She looks rugged, like something about her. She looks strong, like she looks like a badass. And the way she was kind of big sistering some of these recognizable women fighters.
Right.
I remember watching and I'm like, what the hell, man? How is she big sistering these girls who have winning records in the UFC, and she's making them look like they're her little sister? So I said to myself, this girl's badass. And I said, I don't think Valentina's going to intimidate her. I don't think she's going to be intimidated for a second. And she wasn't. I feel she won that fight. It's so frustrating that her eye got closed with that headbutt. But what's your thought?
I mean, first of all, I hate that headbutt happened. I think that changed everything. And I actually think, because Valentina has just cleaned out the division. I think the best thing would be for an immediate rematch.
Yes.
Because a lot of people felt she won the fight, and because of the headbutt, that caused the eye, and just because a lot of people think Santos won, I think there should be an immediate rematch. But man, that fight was close, and I think that third round, because the first two Santos definitely won, the last two Valentina won. That third round,
yep,
man, that was a difference maker, and I definitely want them to run it back, and I think it should be ran back just because no one's fought her that other than Amanda Nunes.
Right.
No one's done that to her. The whole controversy with the headbutt, I know it was an accident, but it still happened. I'd love for them to run that one back.
Yeah, and that's one of the first things I said when they announced the decision. I tell you what, though, Valentina's 34 years old, and Santos is 28. That's a big age difference. And how I mean that is that Santos is just going to be getting better. Valentina, I just don't know at 34, having been in combat sports for 30 years almost since she was a little time, and I'll tell you what, one of the things, and I like Valentina, I respect her a lot. I really wish she would have said something very even if not heaped, at least thrown a little bit of shine and a little bit of praise on Santos. I actually saw someone post saying she never does. She really never, and in all honesty, that disappointed me a bit. I thought she was going to say this girl was a beast. This girl was like kind of beating the brakes off me or something, but she didn't. But I tell you what, if you really think about it, if you're the Shevchenko management team, you might not really want to see that young girl again. You know what, right? And but that would be a shame. That would be a disservice. And not only that, man, that's one of the things I wish that the major MMA organizations would do similar to boxing, is when something's so close like that, make it a rematch. In boxing, it's like never. I think maybe in boxing it's not a question because it's a clause in the contracts, right? Whereas it's not a clause in the UFC contracts. But if you really look at it, Valentina has beaten everyone else. I guess there's a couple newer girls. I guess people are saying, who's she going to fight? Caitlin Chookagian again, but she smoked her. I just, it would be an injustice if, and not only that, but I'll tell you what, the other girl going into that fight, even though she wasn't intimidated, as I'm sure she probably had to at least have a little bit in the back of her head saying, man, I'm fighting this girl they're calling the GOAT, or one of the GOATs. There's a chance I'm going to get the brakes beaten off me and get humiliated out there in front of millions of people. Right now, after having felt Valentina, she knows that's not going to happen. She has no reason to have that sort of fear at all. So I have a feeling she could do even better. So yeah, Valentina, you know what Valentina better plan on doing? Valentina better plan on watching the Rocky 3 movie. I don't know if you ever saw that one with Mr. T, right? Where, the difference was in that one, Clubber, Rocky, Mr. T's character just, pounded, beat the living hell out of Rocky. And then Rocky came. But that Valentina might want to get a little bit more focus on her grappling. And that's one of the things that I noticed in that fight. I actually did the call on YouTube by myself for the first time, a live reaction, and one of the things I think that this reminded some people of is that Valentina really isn't the most experienced, and you're a wrestler and a wrestling coach, she's not the most experienced grappler with wrestling or jiu-jitsu. She's gotten to be good at it. She may have, she could possibly even have a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from having worked hard for 8 or 9 years or whatever. Maybe a black, I don't think so. But the bottom line is she has been beating some girls where she was bigger, stronger, younger, and it's kind of made people think, wow, is she like a triple threat now? Is she like a D1 All-American wrestler and a Damian Maia black belt? But she really isn't. And I think this kind of exposes that, because this big girl from Brazil has probably been doing jiu-jitsu since she was 6. and the way she looked with the body lock and other, she looked like a black belt. And so, in all honesty, I think Valentina is either going to have to fight really hard to keep that fight off the ground, or she better just start putting her nose to the grindstone with her grappling to get it up better.
But another question you can ask you is, like, did Valentina figure her out? Because she did have some success at the end of the fight, or was that because of what happened to the, to the eye? But, did Valentina do enough to figure her out? That's why I think there needs to be a rematch, because that's why it's just so many questions will be can be answered, and I'd love to see it. I'd love to see another 5 rounds of it. That was just
Absolutely. Sorry to step on your words, but speaking of that, I forgot to say that was another thing that Santos had to go into this fight with some self-doubt on, which was, could she go the whole 5 rounds? She had never been 5 rounds before, right? And now she knows she can. So imagine if, because she had not gone 5 rounds before, imagine if she was kind of holding back and conserving her energy most of those rounds, and now she can be like, hey, I did that, it was a breeze. Let me release the beast here in the second round. And so but I will say this, it's just a shame it didn't pay out, because plus 500 would have been one of the bigger upset payouts in a while. But it's not going to be that in the rematch.
Not at all.
No,
not next time.
They'll still make Valentina probably favorite, but what do you think? Barely even 2-1, maybe minus 180 or something.
If that, barely. Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, it's not gonna be plus 500. I know that.
No, not at all. So we don't want to keep you more than maybe 5 more minutes, and I wanted to be able to look down the fight odds, but my producer had to step out, and I think he's out. He's at a different end of the studio. If he can hear my voice, Adam, if it's possible to be able to get the fight odds, but if not, then you know what I'll do? I can pull it up on my phone here, and that's what I will do. It's never a problem. Improvise. We are live, and that's part of live TV. Okay, so this fight we know is Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett. We've had Josh Emmett on the show many times in the past. He's a great guy. I've never spoken with Calvin Kattar in person except for maybe at the end of a live fight, and even then I'm not sure if I've ever had an exchange with Kattar. But anyway, let's go down the card a little bit. First of all, I think you said there's 1 or 2 fights involving CFFC guys this Saturday. Tony Kelly, in fact, why don't I go back to your message? I think it's Tony Kelly. Well, Tony Kelly's fighting this Saturday. Dawkins as well. All 4 of them, right?
Yeah, they're fighting on the undercard. Now, Tony, so Tony, I put him on that list. He didn't fight with us. He signed a contract, everything. He was ready to fight, and he got the call for the UFC. That was one of those fights where he was going to fight for CFFC,
right?
And he got a call to the big show, so me and Arias had to replace that fight.
Right. And
so that was so. I mean, he's kind of an alum,
right?
But
right.
He signed the contract, so we're going to count him as an alum. But his girlfriend, Andrea Lee, is definitely a V3 Fights alum. So, I kind of count him because he did sign the contract with us.
Yeah, absolutely understood. And then is Jasmine on the card this Saturday?
Yeah, Jasmine's on the card.
She's tough. She's a tall, tough, rugged girl, isn't she?
Yeah, Jasmine, Dawkins, and then Jeremiah Wells.
That's right.
Yeah, Jeremiah. Yeah.
And let me see who they're fighting. Dawkins is. Why is it just showing me? It's just showing me the main card here for some reason. I don't know why, but Dawkins. Who does Dawkins and Jeremiah have? I hate to put you on the spot. Who are they going against? Can you see?
I was looking too. I just had it pulled up too. I can look it up real quick. I was just looking at it. I was just looking to see what on every card. I literally look and see which CFFC bets are on there.
Nice.
And I'm like, I say, oh, cool. And I never look and see who they're fighting, unless it's like Aljamain or someone like that, who who he's fighting. But I can look it up real.
Let's see who they got. I know Jason is always really proud of the fighters that come off CFFC as well.
Right.
And for some reason, they're making it tough on almost like they're showing all these fights that don't have your guys in them. Can you see though? I know. Hopefully it's about.
I'm pulling it up right now. I'm like here. This.
All right. So while we're waiting, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to find out who.
Here. Yeah, I think I have it here. Yeah. So. No, this is it. What's this Saturday? It's June what?
18th.
18th. Here we go. Yeah, so the prelims. Tony Kelly against Adrian Yanez.
Oh wow, Yanez has been killing it lately. I think Tony's about a 3-1 dog in that one, but we'll see what happens.
Jasmine, Natalia Silva.
Huh. Okay. All right. That should be good fight. Jasmine, I think, might be favored in that or not, but she's very tough. And then who else? Tell me who else.
Well, this is probably Wells' biggest fight to date. He's fighting Court McGee.
And who's that going to be fighting? Court McGee?
Jeremiah Wells.
Jeremiah Wells. Nice. The Crusher. That's a good fight. Yeah. Court is such a rugged, tough guy. I remember he won the Ultimate Fighter, I think, like 7 years ago, and just a tough guy. This is a good test for Jeremiah, for sure.
And he was one of our champions. And then Dawkins is fighting Roman
Dolidze. That's an interesting fight. Dolidze is a big, strong guy from somewhere in Europe. That's going to be an interesting fight. All those are good fights. You think you're going to get? You think you can get 4 wins or at least 3 wins off of that? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely. That is another thing with CFFC.
Right.
Like, our people just fight in the UFC, but they're successful in the UFC.
Right.
So yeah, we'd love to go 4-0.
Yep.
But we know
exactly. And even if Tony loses, he didn't officially fight in the CFFC, even though he was signed. You could still be 3-0. You could still be 3-0. Okay, let me ask your opinion. Really,
if he wins, we're gonna definitely take credit for it.
Yes, exactly. If not, then you can say he didn't. I love it. All right, let me ask your opinion on some of these fights higher in the card. And let me see. And they took it away, and then I want to bring it back here. And
the co-main events. I can't wait for the co-main event. Like Cowboy against Joe Lozon.
Yes.
Oh my God.
You know what? Yeah, that's going to be killer. And you know what? And it's funny. Now all of a sudden it's showing me the prelims. Anyway, tell me if you think this is possible in the Cowboy Lozon fight. I was at the UFC Boston 4 years ago, where Joe Lozon won in front of his hometown crowd, and I got some good airtime in the post-fight press conference with Dana, and that was my first post-fight press conference. And I said that he was talking about Lozon, and Lozon was talking about, well, maybe he'd look to fight again, and then Dana was like, had said no, and I said, can I get some clarification on your thoughts with that? Is Joe Lozon going to be fighting again? And he thought about it, and he said no, he isn't. Now, it's okay that he is, because he's a tough guy. However, my producer and I feel that this is going to be the first time ever after a UFC live event that both the winner and the loser lay their gloves down. What do you think about that possibility?
That's a good, I was gonna, when I was looking, I was gonna say, this could be Cowboy's last fight. That didn't even dawn on me that it could be Lozon's last fight too. Yeah. That didn't at all. Cowboy did, Lozon no. That is a very, very good point. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
It would. It'd be historic. It'd be historic, And so now, if you want to pull up the fight odds, Adam, we can do 5 more minutes here with Rod, and then we can wrap it up. Okay, so that's perfect right where you are. It's good. Okay, so Yanez is even a bigger favorite over Tony Kelly. Tony Kelly's plus 255. Yanez minus 350, and slightly different lines all around the place. Julian Marquez against Gregory Rodriguez. Marquez is such a tough guy, and he's a dog here, anywhere from minus 150 to minus 160. That's not a huge dog. Funny enough, I'm more familiar with him. I think they call him the Cuban Missile Crisis than I am with Gregory Rodriguez. But Rodriguez apparently is tough. I think Marquez is live in that fight. What do you think?
I'm picking Marquez. I think he's So I think they're building him, and I think he's tough, and yeah, I'm going with Marquez.
Yep, absolutely. I like that. Let me see. Joaquin Buckley and Albert Duraev. Well, I love Joaquin Buckley. He's such an exciting guy. He's out of Michigan, my original home state. He spent a lot of time over there with Murcielago MMA, also with Chaos Williams. My friend, the former Michigan State wrestling team captain and catch wrestler, Curran Jacobs, helped them out with their wrestling because most of those guys were strikers, but really good guys. He may be somewhere else now, but Joaquin Buckley has got some wrestling, more of a stand-up fighter, though, compact, young, exciting. Right. Obviously, Duraev is one of these tough Russian guys. Duraev's a favorite 2-1, and they're making Buckley, just like Marquez, minus 160, minus 170 even. I think Buckley's got a shot here. You know, I could almost see like a parlay, Buckley to Marquez, and if they both win, you're getting like probably 8-1 on your money or something. What do you think?
Man, I'm not even gonna lie. I have a really, really hard time betting against the Russians.
Yeah,
I really, really do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like when I'm looking at a site and they have like the flags of the countries like under like where they're from. Yep. When I see that the flag from Dagestan, I'm like, I can't really pick against them.
Yeah.
You know,
they're so good.
Khabib's team has just, you know what I'm saying? Even if they don't fight with them, just they've been so dominant that like it's just if they're from there, it's just hard to pick against them because they're winning 95% of the fights that they're in. You know, it's just,
crazy.
I have a really hard picking against them.
Yeah,
and I know
that. Yeah, Buckley's got to hang in there. He's got to maybe hurt him with some strikes, and that's hard to do. Right. But it should be an exciting fight though, because Buckley's a tough guy. Right. He's not going to go down easy. All right, then Tim Means and Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland has got a manager and a trainer. He's worked with a couple people, but my friend Justin Adams out of Texas has worked with him and his personal friends, and is also a black belt out of Travis Luter. BJJ, you know, and Luter was a great UFC fighter, and so we always cheer for Kevin. We've interviewed him like 3 or 4 times over the years. He's a pretty big favorite over Tim the Dirty Bird Means, minus 265, minus 275, and even minus 280. I think that makes sense. Tim Means is a tough guy. He's a rugged, tough guy, but I just think I don't see his method of victory or a path to victory here over Kevin Holland. Do you? It's gonna be tough.
I'm going Kevin. Well,
yeah, you got Kevin. You're gonna go with Kevin. You're saying, right?
What's that?
You're gonna go with Kevin Holland. You said, right?
Kevin Holland.
Yeah, I think so. Me too. And then Lausanne and Cerrone, man, they've got the Cowboy favorite. Not quite 2-1, minus 167 and minus 184. So let me ask you this: you're a wrestler and an MMA guy for many years. Neither of these guys are wrestlers. You got. I don't think either of them were D2, even D3. I think one of them may have wrestled in high school, maybe not. Over the years, they've learned it. Lausanne is a good black belt. I think he's probably been a black belt for 15 years. Cowboy, I think, is a black belt, or if not, he's close. But if he is, maybe he may have just gotten it in the last 5 years or so. Cowboy was also a really good striker in his time. Lausanne never had a lot of striking, although he was a tough guy with a great chin. His face would get busted up. So many, fights with Joe Lausanne bleeding, like a stuck pig. He's such a tough guy. So in this fight, both guys I think are a similar age. How do you get a read on this fight? I mean, I think. And the funny thing is, Cowboy's going to be a little taller and longer. I think maybe an inch, not a lot, maybe 2 inches. But you almost feel like Cowboy was always comfortable on his back. So even if he's on the ground under Lausanne, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be subbed, although he'd probably rather not be there. Whereas
Lausanne bombs on the top, man. He just throws like
if it stays go ahead.
I'm picking Lausanne. I think Lausanne's going to win this. It with me, and I love Cowboy. He grappled for us from Fury Grappling. Like
that's right. Yep.
He grappled for us, and I'm a huge fan of his. But like after that Connor fight, man, it's just he
doesn't seem like
I don't know if he's just not the same fighter he was like 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And neither is Lausanne, but I I just feel, I have a good feeling about Joe Lazan on this one. I really do.
Yeah, you could be right. Now, if it stays on the feet the whole time, it's got to be Cowboy. If it does, unless you think
if it stays on the feet, I don't be surprised if it's Gaethje against Chandler. Seriously,
right?
If it's on the feet, they're just gonna just start throwing like in a phone booth and start throwing. Like, it can be as exciting. It could be fight of the year. It can definitely be fight of the year. I mean, I know a lot of great fights that just happened this past weekend. You know, like the whole, you know, Gaethje Chandler, but like this fight, I mean, wasn't it scheduled to be on the paper? It was scheduled to be on the paper.
It was scheduled for it to be like about 2 months ago. Then I think it was scheduled like 3 weeks ago, and I think, you know, hopefully it doesn't fall off here. I don't think it will. Hope not. You know, but
this is a main card pay-per-view fight on free TV. Like, it's going to be an awesome fight.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm excited about it too. And the dog is Lozon. You got the dog here, very possibly. And then you wonder if, and I'll ask this really quick because then we're going to wrap it up in a couple of minutes. But do you think, I mean, since Dana really hadn't wanted to see Lozon really fighting more 4 years ago, and he really probably doesn't want to see Cowboy fighting more, do you think it's possible he may have said, we'll give you guys this fight against each other, but the absolute contract has to show that you both retire? You can't really force that. Or could you? Could he say, I'll make this fight, you guys guarantee me you're both retiring right afterward? Probably not.
I don't know. I just think styles make fights, and I just think they know, sitting in a matchmaker meeting, they're probably sitting there thinking, why didn't we make this fight like 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
But man, I just think they, in the matchmaker meeting, I think they, and similar records and everything, I think I see them sitting there thinking, this would be a hell of a fight. Why have we not done this one?
Yep.
You know, I think Dana knows that they're both toward the end of their career, and this could be it. You know, and he's like, you know, let's put this fight together just because it's going to be an awesome fight. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Final matchup, main event. I'm so happy for Josh Emmett. He's such a nice guy. He's just a really, really good man, right? It just seems like he kept being avoided by a lot of guys because he's a very talented guy. I think he was a D1 wrestler, or if not a good D2. I think he was D1 though, right? And the guy's got, you know, he's got like, you know, absolute you know, steel in his hands. He's explosive.
Right.
He's powerful. Kadar, even though Kadar got owned by Max Holloway, Holloway looked the best he'd ever looked there, and then Kadar came back and looked really good. I forget who it was, but he ended up kind of beating the brakes off someone in his last fight. What do you think here, man? They've got it 2-1 Kadar. I guess, you know, and I think maybe Cater's a little bit younger. He's been a little bit more active. But I just think you can't sleep on Josh Emmett. I think Josh is a better wrestler for sure.
Right.
I think Josh has more one-punch power. He is shorter and he is older. Mm-hmm. But how do you think all those factors are going to affect this fight, and how do you think it plays out?
Like, Josh Emmett, he needs to win this fight if he's going to make a run at this for the title, because, you know, he's 37 years old. Yep. He's only 17-2. You know, you win, you're 18-2. I mean, you're close to being in the talks for a title shot, I would think.
Yes.
You know, with that, so like I think it's a do or die for him. So like, I mean, I'm going with Josh. You know, he got that. You know, I think he needs to make it a boring fight. I would, you know, I think you need to take him down and ground and pound him out, and, you know, don't sit there and just try to strike. I think, you know, if he fights smart and has a game plan and sticks to it, I think I'm picking Emmett to win. I like that he's the underdog because I think he's going to win, and, you know, I'm going to put some money on him.
Yes, I agree. And it's great camps. You got Alpha Male against that Tyson Chartier, which is Rhode Island or some East Coast Mafia. I forget what they're called, but they're good. They're a good East Coast team of guys. Can't wait to see it. Two rugged guys going to beat the living crap out of each other, and it's going to be amazing. Well, let us know where people can support you on social media and CFFC.
Oh yeah, you can go. You know, we have our Facebook page and our YouTube page where we stream our prelim fights. So we stream them on there. So, you know, our main card's on Fight Pass, but if you go to our Facebook page or our YouTube page, you can watch the prelims for free.
Awesome.
on there. And John Morgan is doing commentary. CM Punk is doing commentary. When Punk's not there, I think Dean Thomas did it last time. So we have like some top-notch commentators, big names in the MMA world. So like, come and check us out on Facebook. You can go to all of our our YouTube page and all the prelims in the past, both next gen and pro fights. Of course, on Instagram, CFFC. You can also go to Fury Grappling on there as well.
Absolutely. You convinced my buddy my buddy John Morgan to actually wear a suit that UFC hasn't been able to get him to do in, I think, 15 years. So that is awesome. He looks great and does a great job. If he ever can't make it, consider I can fly in and replace him if you need a call for one of the CFFCs. And I promise I'll wear a suit. But John Morgan is awesome. I've had nothing but great experiences with him whenever I see him at live UFC events. Well, Rod Galvin, matchmaker at CFFC, it's a pleasure to have you on here. All respect to you and your organization there with Jason Lederfine. You guys are amazing. And we'll stay in touch, man. Keep up the great work you do, brother.
Definitely. Thank you very much for having me on.
You're very welcome. Have a great night. Thanks.
You too.
Thanks. And that was Rod Galvin, one of the matchmakers over at Cage Fury Fighting Championship, working with executive Jason Lederfine. Both of them work together at V3 as well. And it's cool to know how they met, where Rod gave Jason a chance to fight many years ago.
Right.
So
right.
that is
One thing I think I remember Jason kind of talking about that. And
yeah.
No, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
So, Colin, another great show. I want to go ahead and say thank you. Everybody out there that's tuned in, you're all the best. Make sure to hit up the Hannibal TV if you're on our social media. If you're on the Hannibal TV, make sure to hit up at MMA Power Hour. We do have a group on Facebook as well as a page. So make sure to like the page, but also go on over to the group, join up, share news yourself there, MMA news. We like seeing it, interact with people in the group. It's growing pretty rapidly, actually. So appreciate everything. You guys are all the best. Make sure to hit up Lift Token as well. Colin, I'm tapping out and handing it over to you.
Awesome. So here's a silly thing I'm just going to throw out really quick as I'm tapping out. One day, our show will be famous enough that when a gorgeous model hits me up on instant messenger, it won't be a scam, but it will be because she'll say, I love your commentary work and your interviews on the MMA Power. So I'm just waiting for that day. Just one of these days, make it be not a fake profile of a supermodel that's contacting me to scam me. Make it one that's actually going to say, love the work you do. You're an amazing interviewer. Please. Is that too much to ask, Adam? No, it isn't, right? Thank you. You don't have to answer. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I want to thank our guests in order of appearance. Mr. Burt Watson, thank you so much, brother. God bless you. It's amazing. 75 years young. You're killing it, and so glad to have you come in here so I could pick your brain and learn so much from you. As always, Rod Galvin, one of the matchmakers over at CFFC, Cage Fury Fighting Championship. Glad to have you, brother. Pleasure chatting with you. Your organization rocks. And Jason Lederfine is the fine leader and the finest leader probably out there because his name is Lederfine. That's about it. Love you, Jason. All you guys here, take good care of your animals. Spread the love in a positive way. Be that guy, be that girl. And, the love will come back to you a million times over. Big love from us to you in these hard times. Be gentle and be kind to yourself. You deserve it. For the entire MMA team, MMA Power Hour team, this is Colin Crandall. And for tonight, I am tapping out.